Hi, welcome to the video log of Finish Strong Cycling. My name is James, and I'm with Team Finish Strong. This event that you're watching today is the Hincapie Spring Series. This is the second weekend of racing. We're at Shoals, and it's March 9th, 2019. This is a 30-mile road race, approximately, 2 laps of the circuit around Shoals. And this is the 35-plus age bracket of the CAT5 category. We're about ready to get underway here in just a few seconds. We had pretty decent weather for the event that day. It was forecasted to be rain, but the rain held off the entire event, at least for us that morning. We're underway, and I want to draw your attention to 2 riders in yellow on the left. The first of those 2 riders, as you see there, his name is Craig Campbell. He's with the Orange Bees team. And the reason why I wanted to point him out to you is because that's the last you're going to see of him the entire race. He takes off the front immediately, and we never see him again, at least not up close. He held us off the entire race. That being said, Craig is a very strong rider. For those of you who attended the Hincapie Grand Fondo last year, in 2018, he won the medio length race on that day, so a very strong rider indeed. And we're underway. I'm not going to narrate the entire event. I'm going to just leave it to y'all to watch and enjoy, but just wanted to point out that one fact, and I'll be joining in from here from time to time to kind of point out some things during the race. We had a few teams represented besides the Orange Bees. Of course, I'm with Finish Strong Cycling, and we have Team Rise also represented here today. As you can see, I believe that's Jeff in front of me. We also have a couple other riders that I'm not too familiar with, some from out of state. Like I said, it was a pretty good riding weather, a little slick, or I should say wet on the roads, but not too dangerous in terms of the racing conditions, and just right as far as the temperature is concerned. So we're getting off to a fairly decent start. Not too much of a killer pace for us. I think that was by design by the Orange Bees. They raced fairly defensively the entire race. Did some excellent tactics to try to keep the chase group from ever catching up to Craig, disrupting some of the pace lines, as well as providing some blocking up front. At times, it was quite a challenge to overcome some of their tactics, and ultimately, their tactics proved to be very decisive in terms of securing first place. And we're coming up the first incline, and it was a pretty decent pace that they set, looking to try perhaps to drop the group or split the group early on. And believe it or not, we all held together. This was a fairly strong group that day, and I don't recall us dropping anyone the entire race. I think we all stayed together. So I'm going to leave it here, let the racing speak for itself, and I'll chime in from time to time. here we are farther along in the race, and the chase is on, and here I'm about ready to take a pull, and so we're making an effort to try to close some of that gap between us and the number one position. You can't even see him really in the video at this point. He's up the road. He's still visible, and so it was always the carrot dangling before the horse in that sense. But what we didn't have, unfortunately, that day was cohesion with the chase. You see here, I've just finished my pull, and I'm expecting somebody to pull through, and nobody comes through. It was like that for most of the race. We would get some surges, some chases where we maybe have a few minutes of some good pulls, and then things would slow back down again. Not really sure why that happened on a consistent basis, but I will give credit to the Orange Bees for their defensive cycling and causing some disruption in the pace line to ensure that the chase really didn't materialize as it needed to. That aside, there were 15 other cyclists there besides myself that could have organized the chase, and it just didn't happen. So we're just at this point just kind of chilling a little bit, staying together, but like I said, it was kind of like that throughout the race. It'd be chill for a little bit, and then there'd be a surge, and then chill for a little bit more, and then another surge. Almost think that there was perhaps maybe some infighting within the group, and that might be a little bit strong to say, but in the sense that that there was more interest perhaps in splitting the group up, breaking the group up, and whittling it down as opposed to working together. But and that's certainly another approach. If you write off the number one slot, and then you're really looking at just trying to see who can fight for the second and third podium slots, certainly makes sense to try to bring the size of the group down and improve your odds. So perhaps that was at play. You can see here another surge as I'm about ready to come on the front again. So just going to let you enjoy more of the event, and I'll chime back in a little bit. Seeing that rider approaching reminds me of something funny. I had been on a fairly long pull at this point and wanted some relief. Not finding any, decided to take advantage of the situation. I went ahead and after I passed the rider, just pulled over and just started coasting. And that seemed to work. I got the other riders to pull through, and it kind of got me off the front for a little bit of a break, and then we just continued racing.
here we are approaching the start-finish line again, this completing the first of the 2 laps at the Fort Shoals circuit. Craig is still way up the road. We get glimpses of him from time to time, but the group in the past 40 minutes has not made any progress towards closing that gap. So I think we're pretty much resigned to giving him first place, and we're at this point contesting the second and the third podium spots. Haven't really been working together effectively on the chase, so it's basically a race for second and third at this point as we come around for our second lap. Wanted to cut in at this point to point out some of the cycling tactics that the Orange Bees used very effectively to thwart the chase. You see here we've got Jeff Jordan and Sammy Clary farther ahead of the pack. We've also got some 2 Team Rise cyclists on the front, keeping things fast. And just as we're about to try to get a pace line going, the Orange Bees form somewhat of a block to try to keep that from happening, and I recognize that, so I decided to go ahead and advance pretty quickly and fill an open slot here behind, I believe, Jeff from Team Rise. What we did find is that when that block formed, if we were able to get ahead of it and surge, that kind of forced Orange Bees team members to chase and to pursue, and that's what we're doing here. And that seemed to help somewhat, although ultimately, as I've already stated before, we weren't able to catch his teammate up the road. But yet still it proved that we were able to adapt somewhat during the race. I also noticed an interesting phenomenon during the race, and that I seemed to carry more speed through the downhills than just about anybody else in the peloton, and I could not understand that. But I took advantage of it from time to time. As you see here, after that last pull, I ended up all the way at the back of a very strung out group, but I was able to just coast almost all the way back up to the front on that one downhill. It was really odd. And later on, I was able to do the same thing. Very strange. I'm not really sure. I don't know if it was my weight or if there's something else going on here. But I took advantage of it. When I noticed that it consistently happening, I again took advantage of it and used it to help me get some free gains in position at various points throughout the race. It was quite a blessing from God, I have to say, in that regard. Here's another example of that downhill effect I experienced. Just had a nice clear path ahead, decided to just tuck and coast, and it worked to my benefit in this case again, even though we were carrying a lot of speed already. And what's interesting here, this is the biggest hill of the race coming up, and you can see here Sammy is on the attack. And I think he called it off when he realized that he didn't really lose anybody on that move. So I decided to do a counterattack at that point and keep things hard, keep things under pressure coming up this last hill. See what kind of effect it might have, and just closing some gaps here with another rider. I think that's from another race or somebody warming up perhaps, but it was a really exciting race. Some really nice dynamics to it. I really enjoyed it, and I'll just let you watch some more of it. Alright, we're coming up to the last turn in the race. This turn is about a mile out from the finish line, so we've only got a couple more minutes of the race to go. And I'm trying to find a good position coming into this turn. I'm expecting a pretty strong surge coming out of the turn, as one would expect this late in the race. But surprisingly, there was no surge. So I decided to go ahead and just go on up to the front, get a good position, almost taking a free pass here to get to the front and get in a good position for the final kilometer of the race. And I go ahead and do a pull. As you can see here, I'm not really killing myself because I know that things are going to really heat up towards the end. So I'm just keeping things fast enough to avoid any counterattacks and just cruising on here, just cruising at a sustainable pace. And we're now within 1 kilometer of the finish line, and should be just about able to see the final turn to the finish and up ahead. Hoping at this point for somebody to come on the front, as I know that there's going to be a final surge at the end, and seeing who wants to lead that charge. And we've got, I believe at this point, somebody is going to start coming up. There we go. I believe that's Alan. He's now taking over number 1 in the peloton, and Sammy Clary is to my right. And I decided to go ahead and stay very close to his wheel as we're coming now down to the last 500 meters or so. And things start heating up. Alan starts picking things up, and we are approaching that last turn. And people are getting a little bit antsy here, as myself. And we are in view of the start-finish line at this point. And I know that it's just a matter of time before somebody makes a break and deciding who's going to do it, who's going to make the break. And I had already kind of figured when I wanted to go, and so seeing that there wasn't much time left, we're now within about 300 meters, and I decided, okay, it's time. So I go ahead and make my move. And I think that was a little bit earlier than maybe some other folks had been anticipating to make theirs, so I did get a little bit of a jump. And let's see here if I can hold on in the front. We're coming now down to the last 100 meters, and there's the start-finish. And do I get it? Yes! Got it, second place. So folks, I hope you enjoyed watching this race as much as I enjoyed participating. Don't forget to like or subscribe if you enjoyed this. Have a great day.